It's a frosty morning, early days of December 2022. A Russian person walks the quiet street in one of Helsinki's industrial estates. An unusual car draws their attention. This model was never sold in Finland. While most of the car is covered with snow, a sticker on the rear window, a contour of Ukraine in blue-yellow colors, draws their attention. On closer inspection, the car also bears a sticker with a large letters UK. Surely it has to be Ukrainian. The Russian comes closer. They try to peel the Ukrainian sticker off. As they started from Crimea, the sticker breaks at the narrowest point. They got angry. They try to break off the wing mirrors. But it turns to be impossible too. Turns out in this model mirrors can fold in both directions. They spit at the windscreen in anger, then write in big letters "Nahui" on the driver's window. They still can't get enough satisfaction. Digging through the pockets, they manage to find a piece of paper and a pen. A pen does not work well in the freezing condition, but they eventually get it going. This is not a place for this car. Go to Ukraine, defend your country, they write, and they draw a picture offensive to Ukrainians. They stick the piece of paper under one of the windscreen wipers and finally walk away. There is a saying, be careful what you wish. 3 years later, this very car became a part of Ukrainian struggle for freedom. This is a Lewackie Pitolenie podcast. How a drunk driver helped to make one Russian's wish true. Part 2. My name is Tomasz Orynski, and it was my car. In the first chapter of this podcast, I told you how in the summer of 2025 I got rear-ended by a drunk driver in Poland. How my car, while still perfectly drivable, was deemed uneconomical to repair by the insurance. How I knew from my previous time as a volunteer that Ukrainian armed forces can use any car, not only pickups or 4x4s, and how I decided to save it from the scrapyard and decided to donate it to Ukraine instead. In the last chapter, you accompanied me through my time of recovery from my injuries, which I used to organize a fundraiser to fill my car with 2 large power banks for the Ukrainian army. Then we went together for a journey from Helsinki, where I live, through the Baltic states and eastern Poland, where we met my friend Jakub, who lives less than 100 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. He told us how the war impacted life in his small, sleepy town on the outskirts of Lublin. The chapter ends as we arrived at the border crossing with Ukraine. Chapter 3. Ukraine and me. This stage of the journey was supposed to be a little of me time. See, my grandmother was born in the town just on the other side of the border. No, I am as Polish as they get. I will explain it further when we visit Volodymyr, or Włodzimierz as Poles call it, and the teeny village of Mikulice, where my gran spent her childhood as a daughter of the only teacher in the small village school. If we manage to do it, that is, as at this point things started to go wrong. As I entered the Ukrainian border checkpoint, friendly soldiers gave me a paper slip. I can't read Ukrainian, so apart from the fact that it had my car's number plate on it, it told me nothing. As I was sitting in the queue, some officer in black uniform approached me and started asking questions in a non-polite way. "What is that in the bag?" he asked in broken Polish. I told him those are power banks for the Ukrainian army. He demanded to see my piece of paper and then started to shout at me in an aggressive manner. How dare I have this kind of the paper slip, if I was supposed to have the other one? He forced me to get out of my car and march back to the soldiers in order to ask them to have my paper slip replaced. He was still at my car when I returned and again demanded to see more paperwork for my power banks. I told him I don't have any paperwork. I was told I can make an oral declaration at the border. He got aggressive again. What do you mean you don't have any paperwork? He asked. I explained those are from the fundraiser and I even attempted to show him the fundraiser website, but he was not getting any of that. Everybody can make a web page like this. And what, do you think I should trust you? How do I know you are not some kind of businessman who is going to sell those power banks to somebody? I don't like to be shouted at by anyone, so lost a temper a bit and answered his question with my own question. And how am I supposed to trust your army? How do I know that your soldiers aren't some businessmen who won't sell those power banks to somebody? I guess it took our conversation a step too far. His face grew red instantly. He told me to park at the side and go to the custom office. And as someone who used to be a driver carrying time-critical cargo beyond the border of the European Union, I knew the custom office is the last place I want to be. Why? Let's hear the explanation I recorded when I was stuck at the border. So here I am already on the Ukrainian part of the border crossing. So I'm physically in Ukraine, but I'm stuck here because I was told that oral declaration should be enough. Apparently it's not. The custom officer claims he is convinced that I'm going to Ukraine to do some business. So he sent me to the custom office and now it turns out that oral declaration is not enough and I have to deal with the paperwork. I mean, the Ukrainians need to sort the paperwork and send them to the border crossing here. So I'm stuck here for at least 2 hours, I am told. I don't know why. I don't have much experience with custom officers, but I used to drive trucks or vans out of the EU to Croatia when it was still out of the EU, to Switzerland, to Norway. And there is one thing that all the customs officers I ever met have in common. Actually, those are 3 things. 1, they are the least polite people in the whole border crossing. 2, they are like offended as if you murdered a puppy in front of them if you dare to ask the question, because of course everybody should be familiar with all the rules according for them. And the 3rd thing, they seem to be never able to speak any other language that their own, and they speak it very quickly. So here with Ukrainian, me being Polish, at least I was able to grasp the gist of what she was telling me, but I just recalled when I was stuck in Hungary, and that was just a disaster. Nobody in the whole office spoke any language other than Hungarian or weren't willing to. I tried every rudimentary pieces of any language I ever had contact with, so I tried Polish, Czech, English, French, like all 3 sentences in German I know. I was listening to Croatian drivers who are also Slavic speakers and tried to pick up some words from there. Finally, I managed in the morning to reach my Hungarian friend and ask her to translate. And when she got off the phone with the guy, she was laughing and I asked her why. And she said, this guy feels offended because you tried 6 languages with him and you haven't even tried the Hungarian. When I told her that the only sentence in Hungarian I know is Ringasz tel magad, it's from the song and it means something like rock your body. So I guess you could translate it as like get lost maybe. She said it was a good thing that I haven't tried to use that. But anyway, that's for a comical break. I'm now getting to my book and waiting for the paperwork to be sorted. Of course, as usual in such situations, the original estimate of 2 hours turned out to be terribly wrong, and 3 hours later I was still there. So it's almost 3 hours as I'm waiting for the paperwork to be sorted, and I'm watching roadworks happening here at the border crossing. I have to say I'm pretty fascinated, as it seems to be no organization at all. Like diggers and workers, they just mingle with people, with traffic, going wrong way, like a huge bucket loader just left into Poland, turned around and came back into Ukraine on the wrong side of the crossing. They also have this big ZIL lorry tipper, which is apparently broken, so they push it around the construction site with a digger. Well, it's fun. At least you cannot be bored. The paperwork eventually took something like 6 hours. I looked at my passport that already had been stamped with the entry into Ukraine. The last time I got a stamp was 2 passports ago, as I haven't traveled outside of Schengen in well over a decade. I was so close, and yet I was unable to move. I had a book with me, The Snake's Island by Małgorzata Scheinert. It tells the story of the Polish soldiers and their families who had to flee their homeland after Nazis and Soviets invaded in 1939 and ended up in the limbo, being placed in Rothsay on the Isle of Bute with pretty much nothing to do. I closed the book and started to think about the fate of my own family. The one common thing in the war is that people have to flee. As I told you before, my grandma was born just 15 minutes or so drive from where I was at. But we weren't Ukrainian. My great-grandfather, as a veteran of the Polish War of Independence, where he fought with Piłsudski's legions, was given a plot of land there as a part of the army officers' settlement program. Poles, like every other nation, like to think they did nothing wrong, but let's be honest, this Polish settlement program was an attempt to dissolve the already existing Ukrainian population in what was back then eastern part of Poland. Both of my great-grandparents were teachers, and my great-granny, Franciszka Bazgier, got in trouble with the authorities as she refused to forcibly Polonize her pupils. She was not only tolerating speaking Ukrainian at school, but openly encouraged Ukrainian families to celebrate their own culture and tradition. As a punishment, she was sent to a small village school where they had to survive on the payments from the pupils' parents. Mikulice was a very poor village back then, so children were bringing the students' fees in nature: fruit, vegetables, eggs, sometimes a chicken. In winter, every child was tasked with bringing a couple of coals from home so they could heat the class by placing them in the furnace. It might have been a humble existence, but in my grandmother's memories it was a truly happy childhood. She played with Ukrainian children, and when I was a kid, she was singing me some Ukrainian folk songs and lullabies. With the war, everything has changed. First, Soviets came and my great-grandfather had to flee and hide in the underground. Other than that, my gran always refused to speak how the Soviets' occupations looked like. Then the Nazis came, and that encouraged Ukrainian nationalists to stand up against the Poles, whom they considered the oppressors. One night, father of one of my great-granny's schoolchildren knocked into the window late at night and told my great-granny to pack up the most valued belongings and follow him to the forest where a horse and a cart was waiting for them. "The UPA is coming, teacher. You need to flee to the city," he said. The only thing my grandmother was able to take with her was a small wooden chest in which she hid her childish treasures. They ended up in Volodymyr, where they were able to rent a room in a small house and get a job in a restaurant, which soon was turned into German officers' canteen. A few days later, a half-naked teenage girl was found in the forest. Apparently, she was the only other survivor of the massacre of the Poles from the village. Sometime later, when my family was sitting at the porch of their new accommodation, a young couple from the village saw them. They were greeted but were too afraid to approach. Finally, the woman burst in tears, saying, "Mrs. Teacher, how you can even forgive us Ukrainians for what we did to you?" I decided to look up Mikulice on the internet. The Polish Wikipedia page for the village is very brief. It basically says, a village in Wołyń Voivodeship, today Ukraine. It used to belong to the church. In 1943, 25 Poles were murdered here by UPA. Architect Władysław Halicki and basketball player Rościsław Iwanow-Ruszewicz were born there. The Ukrainian page is a bit more extensive. Down to the list of all the murdered people. Some of them have gore details of how they died described in there. But wait, those are 26 names of Ukrainians murdered by Poles. There is only one line below which says 10 Poles also died. Surely, we still have a lot of work to do. There will need to be a commission that establishes the facts, because to understand each other, we do need to work out through our past traumas. Yes, it's true, the UPA committed mass murder of Poles in Volhynia. But while this of course cannot be used as justification for their actions, they had reasons to not be happy with the Polish domination in the area. And then we have to remember that the Ukrainian version of that Wikipedia page also tells important part of the story. The Poles were trying to take revenge by committing similar war crimes. As for my grandma's family, they eventually ended up in Wrocław. There is one bit of her war stories that always gives me a hope. As a teenage girl, during the last years of the war, she was forced to work as a cleaner in hospital for wounded German soldiers. The building where the makeshift hospital was organized was placed in the former Polish high school. During a typhoid epidemic, an elderly German who was her supervisor told her not to go into the infected wards. "I am old already, I will do your work, but on one condition. There are some Polish school books in the attic. I will lock you up there so nobody finds you, and you will promise to me that you will use this time to learn. Because no matter who wins the war, your country will need educated people." There's also another lesson from my granny's war stories. They survived first Soviet occupation and then Nazi occupation in Ukraine, but when the Soviets were coming again, everybody flew west. Apparently, being under Nazi rule was still better than being liberated by the Soviets. And what about Ukrainians? As a kid, I was always confused by my granny's behavior. She could speak for hours about her happy childhood in Ukraine. Everybody in the family know the funniest stories from Mikulice, and it seems Franciszka Bazgier was really a respected person in this predominantly Ukrainian village. But then at night, my granny used to have nightmares. Especially in the later stages of her life, she was getting up in the middle of the night to check that all doors and windows are locked. She had always one reply when somebody asked her what she was doing. "We need to lock the doors, Ukrainians might come." So it was kind of tricky. We loved to listen to Granny's Ukrainian stories, but we were warned by my mom not to touch the subjects ourselves so we don't trigger any of the traumatic memories. I remember one time I was driving my gran to the doctor's appointment. A radio was playing in the car and suddenly a song recorded by a Polish band WW together with Ukrainian band Hajdamaki came up. I quickly switched the radio off, but my gran protested. "No, please put it back," she said. I observed her wish and we drove for a bit, listening in silence.
Nie płacz, proszę cię, nie wylewaj łez. Płaczem Boga.
Then I noticed my granny is crying. "This was my dream all along," she said to me when the song ended, "to hear young Polish and Ukrainian people singing together again." My gran was very moved with the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, following it closely. The Maidan and subsequent Russian invasion of Crimea and eastern Ukraine moved her very deeply too. In the later years of her life, my parents got a live-in nurse. They were a bit afraid initially as she was Ukrainian, but it turned out to be the best. They were sharing stories and singing Ukrainian songs together. My granny died during the COVID pandemic. I wonder what she would think of me heading into the town she was born in a car that I'm trying to donate to do my little bit of help for the Ukrainian fight for freedom. Unfortunately, this was not a day for sightseeing. After spending all day on the border, it was already dark, and on the top of it, as Scots would say, it was Baltic and Drukit. It was no time for getting out of my car, so I just made a small circle in the city center, unable to see anything, and decided to head straight for Lviv. So here I am in Volodymyr. This is where my grandmother was born, and I'm guessing this cobbled street was there when she was born, because it's really old and by now really terrible. I hoped to see something, but I spent so much time at the border and dealing with this bureaucracy that it's already dark, and it's also raining cats and frogs, so I'm not even getting out of the car. Just took a detour of 500 meters as I wanted to see the city, but I can't see anything. Still, it's an interesting experience. And so, back on the road I was. As I was crossing the dark eastern Ukraine, I recalled a situation from nearly 30 years ago. I was hitchhiking in Poland, and a Belgian guy stopped and asked me if I have a driving license. When I confirmed, he asked me to get behind the wheel. "I can't drive here," he told me. "How you can see where are you going if there are no lines painted on the edge of the road?" Back then, I found it ridiculous. It was a perfectly normal road to me. But now, on entering Ukraine from Poland, the country that, thanks to EU investments, has one of the best roads in the whole of Europe nowadays, I suddenly realized what he meant. It was really difficult, and I've hit a few potholes on the edge of the road when I was unable to estimate where the tarmac ends. So I'm now on the outskirts of Lvov, I guess. It says 27 kilometers to my destination on my sat-nav app. Driving through Ukraine is better than I expected, to be frank, because I heard all these horror stories about how bad the roads are. The road surface is pretty good. From my little experience, I would say it's probably a bit better than in Lithuania, for example. And there's lots of construction, but construction is crazy. I'm just going through some construction right now, and the traffic, they are not exactly traffic cones, but they have the same function. They are just like randomly placed, and you don't know what's happening. Just before I had some single traffic bit which was not regulated at all, and like cars from one side were forcing their way over the cars from the other side. But generally speaking, apart from drivers who are a little bit crazy by European standards, but I learned to drive in Poland in the 90s, so nothing that would scare me. It's okay. What can I say? I'm starting to be a bit nostalgic because those are the last miles I'll be driving in my car, which I bought brand new in 2009. It had 6 miles when I had it delivered. Now it has 130,000 at this moment, and there's still probably 18 or 20 to go. Well, I have to say I'm feeling much better parting with this car, which I really love, that I know that it will go to the Ukrainian army and will be used for a good cause. Well, what else I can say? I'm nearly there. I will record later more. Definitely. Driving in Ukraine is a roller coaster. Speaking of driving standards, I have to say I don't miss the 90s in Poland. I just had the situation. The road here is like a single carriageway, but the carriageway is quite wide, and everybody is driving on the right, and there was a van overtaking us against the traffic from the other side. So at this moment there was this imaginary third line in the middle, and as he was going to the top of the hill, there was another car doing the same from the other side. So it was quite stressful situation for everyone. I don't miss that, but I remember how it was standard in Poland. And by the way, funny thing, as I was going over those cobbles in Vladimir, I heard some loud bang at one moment. I have no idea what happened, but funny thing is that the check engine light is now gone. So maybe the car just fixed itself, I don't know. But eventually I made it. I met Stas outside his home, we went to grab some food, and then he put me up in the nice hotel nearby. Before going to bed, I recorded my impressions of the day. Hello, so here I am in my hotel room in Lviv. Stas from this army unit that takes my car and the power banks has put me in the digs in the local students' accommodation, which has some guest rooms. Very nice, really pretty nice hotel standards, clean, friendly, welcome, spacious, a very comfortable bed. It was interesting because as I was driving through Lvov, because I have to drive across the whole city to get here, like the city looks like any other European city, like Krakow, like Vienna maybe. In some ways it looks like Poland from 20 years ago, like the roads are really terrible sometimes, and like there are some minivans or high floor buses as a public transport, and people are a bit crazy, like driving is a bit chaotic. Parking is also interesting. There was a car parked in the middle of the road on one of the streets I was driving, but on the other hand there are all the same brands, the same shops as everywhere else in Europe. There's some posh pubs and restaurants, some nicely dressed girls are waiting to get in. If you just drive through the city and look through the car windshield, you would think it's just an ordinary city. But then you park up, Stas comes to meet you, and then you learn, for example, that if you want to eat something, we need to be quick because everything is going to be closed down because of some curfew, blah, 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 blah. We walk quickly to a nearby shopping center to get some takeaway food. And on the distance of 500 meters, maybe we pass a guy who's walking on prosthetic legs, and maybe this 25 max. And then some other guy who has his hand missing. That gives you some thinking. Then when I was checking to the hostel here, they told me if there is an alarm, the shelter is in the basement, but I don't know if I have some strange face or something, because they started to assure me one over the other, like the receptionist and stuff. Don't worry, there's an alarm, it's really short, it doesn't really interrupt your sleeping, but of course if you want to, you can go to the shelter. I guess they are so much used to it that they are no longer bothered by it. That's actually what Alina told me, one of the guests in my original podcast. That after some time you are not bothered really. I had some interesting conversation with Stas. I hope we'll find some time tomorrow to sit down and talk on record, because that also gives you some insight into how people live here and how the world reality is like. But for now, I'm going to sleep. I'm really tired. The weather was terrible. The driving after sitting for 7 hours or so on the border was also quite exhausting, especially that the roadworks are marked here in such a crazy way. Like you can drive and suddenly there's some bit of infrastructure in the middle of the road, and you have to guess if you need to take it from the left or from the right. There's no chance self-driving cars will make it in Ukraine anytime soon. There was some military checkpoints on the way, so you can feel that this is not a country that lives everyday life as other countries in Europe. Still, tomorrow we have some paperwork to be done, and then maybe we sit down and record something, and then I will be heading back to Poland. So that's it for me tonight, for my journey diary. I never know how to pronounce it correctly, and I will record a new bit for you tomorrow. We started the next day with a trip to a local post depot where Stas sent the power banks to his soldiers in the front line, so they could be put into use as soon as possible. I gave him some pointers regarding my car, and for someone that for the first time in his life drove the right-hand drive vehicle, he was doing pretty well. Then we did some paperwork, sat together with Stas and his wife over a cup of coffee, and then he offered me to show a bit of Lviv. For a moment I felt like a tourist. My family had some ties to this city too. My father's side of family is connected to Dzieduszycki's family. My dad's uncle was a Count Dzieduszycki, which fascinated me as a kid, as aristocratic titles have no meaning in Poland for over a century now. He spent his childhood in Lviv, where one of his ancestors in the 19th century established a nature museum, which today is known as Lviv's Natural History Museum under Ukrainian Academy of Science. I asked Stas to show me this building, and we spoke a bit about the traces of the Polish times in Lviv. Incidentally, the restaurant he picked for our lunch was called Baczewski and was continuing traditions of this family known for their vodka manufacture that was running in Lviv before the war. The company still exists and produces, as I'm told by those in the know, quite a good whiskey. In the restaurant, old Polish songs were played, those from pre-war Lviv and some hits from the Polish movies of the interwar period. The city is beautiful, but you can see it's a country at war. Some monuments have been removed for safe storage. Large industrial power generators are located at every second corner in case of a blackout. But enough of my silly ramblings. This was not a tourist trip. If you want to hear what life in Ukraine looks like nowadays, let's listen to what Stas and his wife Ira told me over the cup of coffee before we went to the town. Chapter 4. We won't go away because some crazy madman said we should not live here and this is his land.
So my name is Stas Shostak. I'm a sergeant in Ukrainian army. So we're working as a unit to coordinate pilots, artillery and FPV drones, and we will use this equipment. Like, we're not gonna go full-scale war on this car, but we're gonna use it to drive around, to do the paperwork, to go from the place where we sleep to the place where we're working, like back and forth. Some different guys will use it when the shifts are changing. And power banks I sent already to our artillery unit, so I'm not sure how they will use it. Maybe it will be on some command center, or maybe some pilots will use it. They're gonna like put it where it needed.
They know best where they can be put in the best use.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell them like this is for pilots if pilots already said, so it's okay. Maybe it's gonna be on the command center. Because like these batteries, we need to have a lot of them. So every position, every pilot, every howitzer should need this to power Starlinks, like radio stations, drones, batteries, all the shit. And more they have echo flows, the less they can use like power generators, which are loud, warm, so you can see them from above. Like a lot of problems from a diesel generators or petrol generations, and echo flow is bad. So it's gonna be put in use where it matters.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you one thing, because we know that a lot of people have a lot of goodwill and then they send you stuff across half of Europe that you either don't really need or you could buy cheaper locally and save manpower on sorting them in some distribution centers and so on. So I have to be honest, when I thought that this car may be of use, I wanted to be sure that it's really going to be useful. I didn't want it to be this another Westerner who just dumped some old shit on you. So tell me, like little people like me, what they can do to help, like what's useful for you, because, you know, every little helps, but not necessarily every little.
Yeah, I think the bad thing is to connect with someone. It might be some infantry guy on the front line or someone at the command center. Everywhere, everyone have different needs. So if you speak with infantry unit, they don't need like this car. They will tell you we need a pickup truck, bicycle, not bicycle,
Motorbike.
motorbike or quad bike. So something like this. I work a bit further from the front lines, but still everyone expecting from you all the stuff done. And without a car, it's hard to do. I have my own car, but we have a unit of 8 people, and sometimes someone need a car, even if usually it's okay without it. So this is gonna be a car for a unit. Different people will gonna use it, and it's okay. Probably if you didn't ask someone beforehand, it might be useless. So you can drive the car all the way to the front lines, and just because you don't know someone who will use it properly, someone will take it like from the, like saying, thank you, we'll take it, okay? And it's gonna be staying in the garage because they don't know how to use it in their works, in their situation.
So basically, I could say that the safest way is ask before you send anything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just best to send money if you can afford to, because that's easiest to move around, easiest to redirect to the where it's most needed.
Yes, but sometimes it's hard to like receive money because we have a lot of restrictions, like something like that. So they're not going to use in some not proper direction.
Yeah, but there's this general army fundraiser.
Yes.
There are several NGOs in Ukraine and abroad.
And they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
So like Coming Back Alive or Bretula Foundation or United 24, like government organization. Sternenko Fund, they all know what they're doing. And it's always...
And also locally, whenever you are, there is, I know, the Ukrainian Association of Great Britain. In Finland, there's Auta Ukraina, whom I sometimes try to help them. So, because work with them would be too, right? But I sometimes try to help them, and they help me as well to get the car running. So there is plenty of ways to help. The worst thing, I heard a story about the guy who loaded his old camper with some baby nappies and drove and broke down in Poland, and then looked for someone to fix this camper because he had no money to fix it itself. This is you don't want to add troubles. Like people in Ukraine have enough of their own.
And you don't want to bring something you can just easily buy in supermarkets. So we have war zones, but mostly we have properly functioning country, like for the most part. So it's okay to send some money to buy these baby things or something locally, and even it will be better in from every perspective. So you're gonna pay money here to the Ukrainian stores. They're gonna pay taxes,
salaries, people work.
Yeah. So money spent here is always better than something coming from abroad. But maybe you not trust how someone will spend your money, so it's okay. For that we have like bigger funds. But if you have some local guys or girls, they might be helping some units without like media presence, and they also have a lot of needs. Like every unit have a lot of needs. Army and government gives a lot of stuff, but this is war. It's like every day you're spending something, even your own money. It's constant. So every unit needs something. Sometimes they spend their own money. They all have funding from everyone in the unit.
They put it to the common jar for the use.
Yeah, it's common everywhere. And sometimes these small local volunteers, they know better what to do with this, like specific needs. So if you want to help like on all levels, it's better to help like bigger funds, local volunteers, some organizations. So, on every level, something will go on different things.
And if I may ask you, because you know better than anyone how this war has changed with all the use of drones and everything, it's all modern technologies, but also it's often the technologies that are available on the market. So I wanted to ask if you can, of course, tell me, to what degree your war effort relies on like civilian donations, civilian help? Because this car is here in Ukraine now, but like 3 years ago, I drove just a Volvo sedan as well for the Ukrainian army. And they sent me a picture later how it was painted green, and they said like they use it for a war effort, but it's not used, like they operate in some urban area, so they didn't need the 4x4, and they said it's better because it's not drawing so much attention. So I just wonder to what degree you rely on like donations, on civilian support. Is it important for you, or is just...
We rely on civilian donation constantly because there are some things that should be provided by the army and by the government, and some things are just not, war doctrines not properly adjusted to these changes in the war. So some things government just can't buy. They can't say, we buying this to use it because it's not in the documents, and it might take a year to change it, and while it's changing, the war already changed. And we got few times through it. So civilian donations are really important, but people who receiving them, they need to know what they're doing, because someone also, if they're not on the front line, maybe they were fighting like 2-3 years back, and they remember how war was then, and they are saying we need that and that and that. They send it to the guys on the front line, and they don't know what to do with it now. Yeah. So it might be someone connected to the front lines to know exactly what they want, and also war changing not only in time but on location too. Like on Pokrovsk there is one tactics, on Kursk on Russia there is completely another tactics from them and from us, and it, like you can speak with your friend who is serving like 300 kilometers from you, and you discussing like different wars, and it's okay too. So maybe someone saying they need this, and you just want to check, with your friend. Is it really used? And your friend says, "Oh no, we never use that." But that doesn't mean someone else doesn't use it. So because tactics are evolving and something works on different situations. Somewhere when we just entered the Donbass, like we had experienced pilots who were fighting on Kherson, and Kherson was like flat area, and there was a lot of electronic warfare there. So drones were like
jumped or something.
No, they were actually not jumped on Kherson. They just used to just fly where they need to and do the reconnaissance. And on Donbass, it was not so flat area, so you need to do some calculations about radio horizon, like how to higher up your antennas.
Antennas.
Antennas, so you can just fly somewhere. And a lot of electronic warfare, so it was completely different even for the same pilot of the map. And when they went from Donbass to Sumy and then offensive on the Kursk, it was completely different again, because Starlinks didn't work there and they need to do something with internet, or like a lot of things changed from the front line direction.
The last question I wanted to ask about this military stuff was actually, I've been driving through Poland and I've seen so much of like brand new Polish trucks and some tanks going on low loader trucks passed me by, and like Poland has so much military spending now, and as a Polish person I get angry a bit, because while I have to say I was very much not a fan of our previous government, when it comes to Ukraine they played fairly. And like Czech Republic and then Poland were the first ones to send the tanks to Ukraine and everything. So like we were on the front of what was happening in Europe. Like while Germans were considering, are the 40 years old helmets not too much escalation? Maybe we should send them 60 years old helmets. Poland was already sending tanks. So I'm happy with that, but still, it's everything that's coming here. It's not enough, and it's too late. Is that right assessment? Because, like, from the Polish perspective, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, and you correct me, if we sent all the shit you needed 3 years ago, if we did that, we would not have to spend 4% of our GDP on the military things right now. So, like, I know it's hard from your position, because from one side you really need that, but from the other side, you know, it's kind of like may feel like you beg for the help you need. It feels shite, but what's your take?
It's not only about Poland, so don't feel bad. Like, even if Poland gave us everything you had, even at the beginning, it wasn't enough still. Because we had successful offensives on the Kharkiv and on Kherson, and then it was Zaporizhia. Like, it was a lot of stakes there. And we didn't get enough equipment, not only from Poland, like from the whole world. And we started it unprepared, but very well announced. When it's failed, it was like everyone's fault. Not only Poland, not only West, us too, because we really well announced it. Everyone knew that gonna be offensive there, and we had not enough equipment to do it. So, like, of course, if Poland gave more on some directions, we would do better. But it's not only about the Poland. Like, right now we are using one of the Poland equipment, like HS Crab, and it's the best 155th artillery we used, and it's almost always on point. But actually, you start seeing, like, NATO was preparing for different wars, because all the NATO's howitzers, they're so big, and you just can't, in this war, like, fighting with 5 artillery units firing up in the field. You need to make trenches for them. And to dig up a trench for a crab, it's like building a house inside the ground. So it goes like, I think, 4.5 meter height, and you should dig it, and then the water is down there, and it gets so quirky to use it, but still it's one of the best howitzers we used. So even one crab can make a big difference on some direction for some brigade, and when you have constant shipments, it's amazing.
The West is now giving you more and more and more, and rightly so, I can't stress it enough. But do they still, like, even get close to your needs?
No. And I don't think it's possible, because Soviet equipment and Russian equipment is cheap, and you can use it a lot. Like, on the front, the more you use artillery, the more it gets hit by FPVs, because
it's get worn basically with use.
Yeah. Not only worn, like,
I mean worn, like it's getting
worn
used.
is one side, but you can find any artillery when it's used. When you use anti-PQ or something like this, like radar systems, you know a quadrant where someone was firing, and then you just reconnaissance it with the drones, and that's it. And with artillery, it's big. Even if it's hidden properly, it's still not too hard to find. So the more you use it, the more you lose it.
Yeah.
So
it's not like the First World War that you put your cannon here and it's there for 4 years. Like, as soon as you shoot, you have to run away, basically.
Sometimes we just lost our positions in a day or two. You prepare them for a week, so you dig them, you mask them. In night or during some fog or bad weather, howitzer goes there. Then it makes 2-3 firings, like it fires a few times, and it got discovered.
Yeah.
And you either lost it, or you just wait for the next bad weather to go out. And
Okay, let's drop this military stuff because I have no idea about any of this. I'm myself. I was doing everything to not be in the army, but that was actually a bit of your story. Yeah, you weren't really keen to be a soldier, but the life brought it to you. And
Yeah.
can you tell me about that?
I was avoiding army like for most of my life because I didn't see myself in strict vertical constitution, or I don't know. Before the full-scale war, I was thinking like we would go away if it started, and when it started, me and my wife thought, fuck no, like we won't go away because some crazy madman said we should not live here and this is his land. And after some time, I joined the military, and I was lucky to go on some computer position, not in the trenches or something like that, where I can use my skills and be useful for people doing the hard work. And they let me know sometimes I'm doing the right thing, and for me, that's enough.
And your wife is with us now. Can you introduce yourself to us?
Hello, my name is Ira Labanok, and I am a musician and a sound producer, but now I work for the government. Like as Stas said before, I'm also very not accustomed to work for vertical structures, but now I work for the Ukrainian Institute, which is an institution of cultural diplomacy, and we promote Ukrainian culture abroad. So in 2022, I decided to switch from being a musician to doing, because I wanted to do something more useful for the country at the moment. And so I thought maybe like promoting Ukrainian culture, and I promote music, and I know people in music. I'm proficient in that, so I thought maybe that would be a better use of my skills and of my time while the war is there. Because as Stas says, like he makes sure, like he contributes to making sure that the war finishes, but I'm trying to contribute so that another war doesn't start. In a way that before the full-scale invasion, not a lot of countries knew much about Ukraine. And that was also a reason why they were hesitating to give us something. Because I didn't know about this country yesterday. Why should I give them weapons? They contributed to that, I think, a lot. Not knowing something actually also scares you. So we're trying to make people familiar with our culture, our films, our theater, music, language as well, promoting Ukrainian language in the world as a soft power in a way. But we are a very young organization. We've been established only 8 years ago. In most of the countries, it's 50 years, 60 years before the Second World War and stuff like that. And we are super young.
So you are basically working with something like Alliance Française, for example, this cultural embassy, so to speak,
yes.
in other countries. Yeah.
Yeah. So in other countries, it's British Council does the same thing that we do.
Goethe Institute,
yeah, Polish Institute, or you also have the Adam Mickiewicz Institute, and I have no idea why there are two and how they are
I'm Polish and I don't know that, so.
So it's rare when you have two institutes that do that.
Yeah.
You have to.
But it's interesting, as we were speaking before we started recording, that I can see a change as a Polish person, because as our British listeners will know very well, for Westerners, everything in Eastern Europe is the same. We Poles, as we proudly like to tell everyone who wants or doesn't want to listen, we are not Eastern Europe, we are Central Europe. And we look up a bit to the West, but look down a bit to the East. When I was a teenager in my 20s, in the Polish common language, there was this word ruski, which was for everyone from former Soviet Union. If they speak something that sounds Russian to us, they are just ruski. They were all swept with the same brush and everything. And it changes for two reasons. One, because even before the war, a lot of Ukrainians came to Poland for work. When we were going to Britain, you were coming to us. But also after the war, we got closer. We are helping you, despite our difficult history together. And we are getting to know you better. And now nobody would call Ukrainian Ruski, because we know you better and we know that you're not the same. But also because Ruski is now not a very nice thing to tell about people. And that's the other reason for that. So this is, I think, a good moment for you to step in and bring to us this culture, this common like history elements that we have, and probably also to work through some traumas. Although I think it's just as it's not a good time for you to expect to say thank you to us, maybe it's not exactly the best time to expect you to say sorry to us if you did something to us in the past. We need to work for the better future, but that will come sooner or later.
Yeah, I wanted also to point out that the word Ruski is something that Russia appropriated as well. So when we're saying like Rusy, Rusiny is like the tribes or what, that lived on the territory of Ukraine, and also Kievan Rus like was far before Russia was even like invented. So they appropriated it. And to be honest, like, you're right in a way, like, to call Ruski, because, like, Ruski and Russian is two different things. And they appropriated the word, like, Ruski for themselves. Mm-hmm. They are not, it's like, in our language, you have two different words. Mm-hmm. Ruski and Russian is like two different words.
Yeah, it's the same in Polish. It's Ruski and Rosyjski.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, but they kind of made it equal. Yeah.
But Poles, we don't have good history with Russians either. And when this full-scale war started, there was this anti-Russian, I don't know how to call it in English.
Right?
Like everybody was so angry at everything Russian. And then there's this Polish food, pierogi ruskie, one of the best ever. And people started to call that like Ukrainian pierogi, which makes no sense because this ruskie, it means it's from Rus. It doesn't mean it's from Russia. So it's exactly the thing you're talking about.
Yeah. But about discovering the culture, it wasn't only for us to like share it with the world. It was also finding our own identity. Like Stas and I were coming from the east of Ukraine, and we are Russian speakers. Like our mother tongue is Russian. We were born and we spoke Russian until like the age of 7 when I went to school, and I discovered that there is Ukrainian language because there was the subject Ukrainian language. Maybe Stas started like a bit earlier, but generally it was like you would be exposed in like 90s to Ukrainian only at school because the TV was in Russian, radio was in Russian, all the advertisements were in Russian, so like you couldn't even like, you were living in Ukraine but everything was in Russian, and you only started like questioning why it's weird. Like, you know, when you go to France everything is in French, when you go to like Britain everything's in English, like logical. But I started asking my mom why is that when I was like 8, or like when I was exposed to Ukrainian language, and I was like, okay, this is logical, we're learning Ukrainian, we're speaking in Ukrainian in Ukraine. But my mom is a history teacher, so that was a good, you know, person to ask. So she could explain that to me. But also, like, now a lot of young people are interested in Ukrainian folk music, which is quite atypical for, like, usually folk music is like older people are interested in that. But in Ukraine and in Estonia and in some other countries I asked around, they have super big interest from young people because they're trying to rediscover their identity, and find, like, when we're listening to old Ukrainian songs, they are about the war, and you can actually like apply them to now and they would make a lot of sense. So I think it's in times like this people are rediscovering their roots and their identity, and it's like, it's not only for us to share our culture to people from abroad, but also for ourselves to like find who we are, and like it was historically why we started speaking Russian. It's not like because we wanted to. That's an important thing to like reclaim what's ours.
But it's also like, I'm Polish, but I never learned Russian in school. I'm not that old, so I was the first year for which that was not mandatory. And I studied some Czech, and so I'm like mostly on the Western Slavic languages. And for me, for example, I still struggle when I hear someone talking. I can recognize like certain words, and then I'm sure. But for most of the time, if I hear someone speaking, I don't even know if they speak Russian or if they speak Ukrainian. And also you got something, I think it's called surjik, when it's like mixed of two languages together. Yeah. So for a person from abroad like me, it's even hard to tell who's speaking Russian and who's speaking Ukrainian. And for you, you can probably say a lot if you hear someone speaking.
Yeah. But that's why, like, whenever you hear someone speaking Russian in Ukraine, you're like, yeah, okay, I understand that. So in a way, when we hear someone speaking Russian abroad, then it is like, in a moment you feel threatened. Because you don't know if it's Russian, like from Russian people, or if it is Russian from like east part of Ukraine or someone. You can't say straight away. There is like the pronunciation from like Moscow and St. Petersburg that you can hear straight away. But closer to the border, it's kind of mixed. Sometimes it's really threatening when you hear someone like speaking Russian abroad.
Yeah. We were talking about that with Stas today. I have a friend. She's Russian. She lives in Poland. She's a great girl. And when all the Ukrainian refugees started to come, she volunteered to be an interpreter. And she gets some really unpleasant moments because when you're running away from Russian bombs and then there's like a Russian speaker welcoming you, that was very stressful to people, even if she's like fantastic woman and she really wanted to help. So I can imagine how triggering that can be for you, while for us in the West, we cannot even distinguish the two languages. So I want to like, especially to my British friends who don't speak any of the other languages. And sometimes it's hard to imagine for them that there are so many layers to these human interactions we cannot even imagine.
Yeah.
But maybe if we can change the subject, because we are now in Lviv, and you are not from here originally, but you moved here, I guess, well before the war.
Yeah.
And it struck me when I arrived yesterday. I had to drive to the city center to get to your place because I was going from the opposite end of the town. And there was this kind of Russian propaganda some time ago that there was this TikTok clip running around, and like the people were like enjoying themselves in the pub and like expensive cars. And while I was still in my car and looking through the windshield, this is how Lviv looks to me. It's very similar city to Kraków in Poland. The architecture is the same type. There are some posh pubs, like rich cars parked outside, some like nicely dressed ladies on high heels crossing in front of me. It's just a bustling city. And then I arrived near your place. I parked my car up. Stas came up and I told him I'm hungry because I haven't chance to get something. And then he told me like, there's a coffee coming, so we need to be quick about that. And we went on foot like 500 meters or so. And you probably don't even notice that, but I've noticed there was a guy on prosthetic legs. There was another guy without his arm. And that was on the stretch of 500 meters. This, when it hits you, that this is still a country at war, and you can see that every day, even if you are in the West, so far away from when it's actually happens most of the time. So, how is that like for everyday living? Do you feel that people are worn by it? That stress levels are higher? Like that's maybe a stupid question, but you know, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. People are adjusting to everything. Mm-hmm. Like even when the war just started, in a week it was almost like normal life, but with alarms and some bombings, like you just adjust to it. You can't live in constant fear, in constant understanding how hard someone is fighting at the front line. So even for soldiers, between the shifts or something, like they might be fighting a few days back, but now they're in some big city or small city or somewhere, and they just living life while they can.
I can say, like, from a different perspective, because I go abroad a lot, and it's in a way, I can compare people from, like, they live peaceful life and us, and then it gives you perspective. So, like, I think that our people are worn out. because when I compare to like people that I work with abroad, we always like do some partnerships with different countries. So I can see how for it's more than 3 years in the war already. It takes people in Ukraine longer to process some things. You can see demotivation. You can see like lack of energy, even to do like a small task. Sometimes it's a bigger effort to do that because you are affected by 3 years of not enough sleep, of like doing something for the cause and not seeing huge results, and like not knowing if you have to like stretch your energy for another 10 years or for how long. And when I go abroad, I sometimes get annoyed by how much energy people have. It's like they're bursting with energy, and I'm like, yeah, lucky you. So like sometimes I actually get angry, and then I get back and I see people, it's just like a lower amount of energy and lower amount of motivation. And like for regular tasks, I can see a lot of that. But as you said, it's important for us not to like work on the trauma just yet, because if you start working on the trauma and you are unpacking things, you just like melt down and it's going to be an end of it. We have to be kind of careful to like unpack something, but not too much, so that we can stay intact for a longer amount of time. So after, I don't know, the victory or whatever, we will have a huge meltdown of the society. And yeah, I'm not sure how to like...
I'm Polish. The war ended, 8 years ago? And it's still like national trauma. I was a kid in the 80s. We were growing on war movies, and I don't know how you call them in English or in Ukraine, the 4 soldiers in the tank with a dog. TV series about the Polish. That was like a cult TV show for all the kids, and everyone was playing the soldiers in the tank going for Berlin, and it was 2 generations apart. So I just can't imagine how much is that. And then this may be not funny for you, but I found it amusing when there was some article about some bombardment in Ukraine. And some idiot wrote, I wish the bomb hit like when I am, because I'm so fed with life and that will end everything and so on. And someone commented, and I think it was great on point. It says, see, the difference is the bomb falls and then Ukrainians get up in the morning and go to work because they still have lives. It's not that like the bomb's falling and then you can just lie on the bed because you are being bombarded. No, you still have your lives to live. You still have the country to run. You still need to pay your bills, cook food and everything. So this really has to be tolling.
Yeah. I remember how in London, whenever there was snow falling, people wouldn't go to work because it's like, it's snowing, it's hard to get to work. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be 5 minutes late because the bomb just fell next to my building and it will take me a little bit more time to get ready. So that's the reality here. Yeah. And people are trying to be like understanding. On the next day, like if there was like a huge night of bombing, like our colleagues at work, they're like, just take a bit more time. You can be like an hour late to work, and like, or you can work from home. So like there is also some kind of work etiquette towards that, and especially in Kiev, of course, like Lviv is not hit as much. We can't even compare. So yeah.
And even this everyday stress, like my mom was kind of freaking out a bit that I'm going to Ukraine. And then you probably are freaking out a bit when he goes back east because he's now on holidays. And then I even can't imagine like the wife of the soldier who's an actual trench in this crap howitzer you were saying about. So it's cannot be even imagined if you have not lived through this. So what like Westerners, is there anything they can do to help, or they just should shut up and stop asking stupid questions?
I don't even know. It's like when someone is caring enough to ask these questions, it's kind of a good moment, even if the question is stupid, but if you see it comes from the heart, like not some tabloid stuff, like would you be sad if your husband died somewhere or something like this, but people stuff, like when you're trying to understand it, when you're trying to put someone's perspective in your head to understand it better, I think it's good for everyone involved.
Yeah, like for me, because I work in this kind of line of work where I'm really happy to explain everything, and like I'm really happy when someone asks questions. Sometimes people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want, they don't know enough, and they're afraid to be like, I don't know, stupid or, ask stupid questions. Sometimes I think, especially at the festivals and conferences where I am, it feels like the mood will go down if they ask that, and then it's not a good reason not to ask things. So it's like, yeah, we're having so much fun, and then like, how are things? And then of course it's going to be a negative topic. So sometimes even when we organize some events, I see that in the first time after the full-scale invasion started, there were a lot of Ukrainian events, like Ukrainian artists, Ukrainian something. And now when we announce it as Ukrainian event, people are not going in a lot of situations, because I think, and what we analyzed is that they are having good time, and then go into something Ukrainian will mean that there's going to be speak talks about war, some negative stuff, and especially at the festivals where everyone's having fun. Yeah, maybe I'll just avoid going to Ukrainian pavilion at the exhibition or some stuff. So we started actually doing something uniting with other European countries, especially Eastern European countries like Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, that are sometimes not getting enough attention at bigger events where Britain brings a lot of money, France brings a lot of money, and we unite, and we have this Eastern European showcase, and then more people come because it's not just Ukrainian showcase, and also it's uniting our Eastern European, which is people still look down to it, whatever. So we're trying to show that actually there was this showcase in Budapest. They are funded by the party who is not in power now, so what is it called? Whatever. They called their showcase to the New East, something to, so basically giving power to the Eastern European countries, and I think it's also a way to go, to unite in that way.
Someone is knocking because we started recording, yeah. But I of course I don't have any research behind that, but do you think they will stop?
I don't know. I'm not sure why.
Well, you can hear that the podcast is being recorded whenever we can sit down. I have no research, but I can expect that part of why people don't go to these Ukrainian events anymore is that when the war started, we were all hyped, trying to help and everything. And now people can feel down, not because of Ukraine, but they can feel down that they stupid countries did nothing or not enough. And that's maybe also the reason why they are not so keen to go and mingle with Ukrainians, because they feel guilty for not helping enough. I think that may also be one of the reasons.
Yeah, that could be. It's just it's very hard to influence the reasons, so that's why we're trying to solve it some other way. Because this thing with the Eastern European thing, it helps all the reasons basically. So you don't put it on the surface. And it also makes sense to just unite with the countries with the same not the same, but similar problems, not being seen enough in a bigger perspective.
I have to tell you, this is something that really annoyed me when I used to live in Britain. The Eastern Europe is not considered part of the real Europe. And I give you example. When you were buying a TomTom sat-nav, you could buy 3 map choices. It was Great Britain and Republic of Ireland, full Europe, and full Europe including Eastern Europe. That were your 3 ranges of maps. So if you buy full Europe, it was no good to go to Poland because map ended at the other river. So this is this mentality that it's still present in the West, and I think it's great if we can join together and somehow show us that we are here and we are not all the same. Just like you aren't Ruskie in Polish society anymore. Maybe it's time for West to understand it's not just Eastern Europe. There's many countries, many cultures, many histories. So just to finish it off, I've been asking a lot of stupid questions. What questions should I ask?
No, I don't know. I don't think that there is a right or wrong questions. Like,
Maybe different. Like, should Westerners do something like to try to understand, or should they just shut the fuck up and let you do what's most important for you now? Like, how you see your relations? I'm putting that in bold words, of course, because I'm not a diplomat by trade, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. It's like, I could imagine, like, instead of getting some attention, you would rather get some real help. But on the other hand, as your job proves, like, this getting cultural attention is also a tool to get what you need and to be seen as someone more than just some, what was the famous quote from Chamberlain, some weird people in the countries far away, we know nothing. This thinking is still common in the West. So, like, there will be British people listening to this podcast, and Czech people, hopefully, and Polish people, hopefully. So let's say what you would say to British people, what you would like them to do.
I think it really depends on the person. You can donate, of course, or you can post about Ukraine, like you can repost some Ukrainians that you know.
just get more involved. Like, you are more involved than average European citizen, I think. So all your questions are well informed, and we can speak on almost the same level of understanding, like, globally.
Just be curious. And if someone is ready to come to Ukraine, it's the best way to discover, because while we are just a country on the paper that exists somewhere super far, and it's either you have friends that you trust and you read their posts and you feel almost like being in the context in Ukraine, or coming here and asking people and seeing what you saw yesterday. I think it was quite a picture that you described, seeing the central lifestyle, and then seeing the soldiers and how it affects regular people in Ukraine. So it's there are a lot of answers to your one question, but basically be curious and
check
do what
your
you
sources.
can.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. We were talking, there was recently a research on Polish internet that 80% of internet traffic, comments, posts, tweets, whatever, are sourced from Russian propaganda, troll farms and everything. So if I may get some advice, that's what I do. If I want to understand things about Ukraine, I go and read what Ukrainians are writing. That's the simplest possible way to do so, and yet somehow people seem not to always get that.
But we were sharing at the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, I was sharing the websites that we trust in Ukraine, and people were hesitating to read them. They would rather read something international, I don't know, Guardian, that takes 2 weeks to write something that happened today, rather than a Ukrainian website that was writing every hour, news of an hour, that you can almost have a live stream of what's happening. And they were hesitating because maybe you're a corrupted country, we've heard a lot about you, so it took a long time. And still, I think for some people it's still not credible enough, some sources that we use, Kyiv Independent and stuff like that. So to restore the credibility of the country first, so that people would trust first-hand sources that are later used by international news websites.
And also, in a lot of international websites, the Ukrainian experts were for decades based in Moscow.
Yeah, this is actually one of my pet peeves, that there is something like that. Hundreds of people on Twitter who declare themselves Eastern European experts. And then you got the Guardian editorial on Ukraine, and there's some Russian guy writing about it. And I checked that, and there was only one guy who called himself Western European expert, and I think he was Polish academic who did this as trolling, because it's something unimaginable for me that there's a guy, they invite an Italian guy to speak about, say, Belgian elections because he's also from Romani group of languages, as some Belgians are. That would be stupid, and yet we do that all the time. And also there's one thing I want to stress if we speak here, that even if they are good Russians. But we still have to be careful what they say, because they may not always be able to say. I was telling Stas before, I got a Russian friend and she was on my podcast and she spoke so boldly about the situation between Ukraine and Russia, and she wanted it to go on air. And I told her, listen, no, I will remove this bit because your parents still live there. You need to think about them. And that's why even from the most good-willing Russians, we still have to remember they may not be able to tell everything. So go to the source, listen to the guys who really want to scream sometimes and tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be it. Thank you for having me. Thank you for putting me up for Dick's, a beautiful place to stay.
Thank you for coming, like globally.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone who donated. And I have to stress that would not be possible without my readers. You guys were great, and I was not believing I would be able to buy anything, and we brought 2 of those big power banks, so that's great. Thank you for everyone, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you all.
Chapter 5. Privilege. I'm back in Poland. Today was a very nice day. We went with Stas to a postal center to send the power banks to the front line as they are needed there. Then we sorted some paperwork. We spent a nice time with him and his wife, chatting about various things, like mostly me talking. I'm talking too much. I'm sometimes embarrassed by myself, but I've been just so excited with all this like trip, and that I'm doing something useful for the change, even if it's small, and that I was in the Ukraine first time and my family had some connection and so on. So as there was about an hour, maybe hour and a half to spare, we went to the city, we took a short stroll. Then Stas drove me to the train station, stayed with me on the platform to be sure that I will get on train no problem. There was a passport control on boarding the train. Then we've been delayed, but by, 40 minutes maybe. Maybe not 40 at the beginning, but the train was standing on the platform and there were soldiers running up and down checking everyone's passports, mostly young men's passports. I'm not very old man, so they checked my passport twice when I was already on the train, and then I guess it looked suspicious for them because they were asking me for the reasons of the trip, and I told them I just came yesterday, dropped the car and leaving off. They found it very suspicious that I got a big backpack with me, which I have because now I'm going to Poland to see my parents and to spend some time there. And then last station before the Polish border, we stayed again doing nothing for a really, really long time. So we rode to Przemyśl train station about an hour later, and there is a border crossing inside the station, which was opened only to half of its capacity. So of 6 windows, there were only 3 open. And one, after queuing for maybe 20-25 minutes or maybe more, I moved enough to be able to see in the distance inside of the building, and I've noticed that there's one window for EU, EEA passports when the lady sits and does nothing. So I spoke with the border guards that was looking over us, and I asked, can I go to this window somehow? Is there another queue? And the lady said, yes, there is, but for some reason the doors are closed, so everybody is standing in the same queue and they are only separated after they enter the building. So 3 meters before the actual passport check booths. which I found ridiculous, and she kind of agreed with me, and then she said, I cannot do nothing, I don't know how it works, I'm new here, but then she went away and asked someone, and then they opened the other doors and waved the EU passports holders in. So I came through, and then they checked my passport, and then all the free queues from free windows go to one security lane. So it was another 25 minutes or so wait. And they checked my passport again. And then it was certain that I won't be able to get to the last train because it left like an hour before at this time. So I looked online for some accommodation. I found some place. So I came here, I went to the shower, and then I tried to buy a ticket for my train tomorrow, which is impossible because website of both like railway provider and the independent ticket seller crash just before you try to pay for your ticket. So I was unable to do so, and I was wondering, so should I get up at 6 in the morning and run to the train station and buy a ticket there? But I was chatting with people on Mastodon, and one of my followers offered he will try to buy a ticket using the Polish payment system, which I don't have because I don't have Polish bank account. So those are my thoughts for this evening. And I will let you know if anything interesting happens. Next morning, I was standing on the platform waiting for a train that will take me to Wrocław, where my parents live. From there, I was to jump in my van and drive back to Helsinki. Next to me, a busker was playing Bella Ciao on the accordion, and other passengers were climbing the stairs, making terrible noise with their enormous suitcases. Most of them were Ukrainian, and most of them were either women with children or elderly, as men have to stay and defend their country. I saw a couple of faces I recognized from the train last night, and they looked like they haven't had any sleep. They probably spent all night in the station's waiting room after having to queue probably for another hour or two in that border control queue that I was able to skip for the most part. Russia took even the right of convenient travel from them, as they are no longer able to just board the plane and have to go on international railway journey with a transfer on a medium-sized train station in a provincial, sleepy Polish town. From the speakers, a trilingual message informed us that the train to Kiev that was supposed to be departing about now is being delayed for at least an hour, and that this delay is likely to increase. At the same moment, John Cleese's voice told me, "We interrupt this program to annoy you and make things generally irritating." You might have heard him in one of my recordings before. This is my phone's message notification. Stas sent me a picture. A dark cloud rolling above the city as seen from his balcony. "You left Lviv at the right time," he wrote, adding a smiley face. We were talking about expected snowfall, so I asked him if that's it. Nope. It was a smoke after a Russian rocket hit a warehouse nearby. This was probably the reason why the Ukrainian train had been delayed. Being back in the European Union, in NATO, safe from Russian bombs and free to go whenever I please, I suddenly felt bad. True, I had a good intention, but let's be honest. For me, the trip to Ukraine was an adventure that I went on because I wanted to do something good out of when I thought my life is going to shit. Suddenly, even the stupid insurance company trying to rip me off in every possible way felt meaningless. I felt stupid for asking all those questions and guilty for allowing Stas to waste the already short time he had away from the front lines on entertaining me in Lviv. I know I helped. Together with my readers, we did a good thing. But let's be honest, what feels like a big achievement for me is just a little drop in the ocean of the Ukraine's needs. I know I am privileged. Yes, you may say we Poles earned it. My father, for example, spent time in jail for being an anti-communist underground journalist in the 80s. We, the Poles and the Solidarity movement, we were one of the first stones in the avalanche that started with the round table negotiations and ended up with the fall of the Berlin Wall and collapse of the Soviet Union. But we are able to enjoy that privilege only because Ukrainians are still fighting. Their struggle is not only for their freedom and way of life, but also to protect us in Europe. Even if you think you are safe on the British Islands, remember Brexit and the role Russia played to tear you apart from your European family. Luckily, many people do understand it. Last night, when I was struggling with booking my train ticket online, one of my followers from Mastodon, Stefan, offered to buy it for me. I asked him for his bank account so I can wire him his money back. You don't have to. Put this money towards your next fundraiser or the fundraiser of your choice, he said. And I have to mention, he was not the only one who came with similar offer. Will I start another fundraiser? I'm not planning to. I started this one only because I was going with my car already and didn't want it to arrive empty. As Stas told us, it's very important to help in the right way, and I'd rather leave this to professionals. But for me, there is no choice. We have to stand firmly behind Ukraine. Before I started this trip, I just knew there are brave Ukrainians who fight for the country and freedom of Europe. After meeting Ira and Stas, I hope I can also say they are my friends. This was a Lewackie Pitolenie podcast, written, recorded and edited by me, Tomasz Orynski. Music, Krapka. Additional music, Sergei Pawkin. Guitars, Artur Lesicki. Piano variation of the Ukrainian national anthem, public domain. As well as some sound effects I used. I also used a fragment of the song Wyszła Młoda by WW and Hajdamaki. Background sounds include also archival recording of Tylko we Lwowie, Only Lviv, by Emanuel Schlechter and Henryk Wars, but I don't know who the performer is, as well as Bella Ciao, played by unknown busker at the Przemyśl train station. Delivery of 2 powerbanks was only possible because of donations that I received from my readers and friends. I would like to thank you for all the money you donated, and I think you deserve now the clarification of my expenses. So, sit back and enjoy the most boring part of this podcast. The total amount of money raised was €1,825.62. Additionally, I was given 200 zloty in Polish currency, and Stefan's ticket costed 63.99. Cost of purchase of powerbanks, 7,554 Polish zloty. Netto. We bought them in a very good price, and friend offered to cover VAT and delivery costs. Finally, we ended up paying just 7,500 Polish zloty. As I had this 263.69 donated in Polish zloty, I only needed to convert 1,708.90 euros to meet the remaining balance of 7,236.01 Polish zloty. My dad was lending me some money in Polish zlotys, so instead of physically exchanging and transferring fundraised euros to Poland, only to then exchange and transfer my own Polish zlotys to Finland, I did a switcheroo, which allowed us to save over 10 euros in exchange and transfer costs. I drove to Lviv, where I met with Stas, one of the soldiers from the unit that got the donations. I transferred the car and power banks to him physically, but formally it was done properly through an Ukrainian NGO. After I physically handed over the car, we drove to the postal warehouse in order to send the power banks away so they get where they are needed as soon as possible. As I record those words, they are already working on the front line for almost 2 weeks. I'm happy to report Stas was doing great for the first time in the RHD car. Speaking of the car, there was some snack with the paperwork, so it was waiting in Lviv for some time. After that, it will be serviced and also sent where it needs to be. As you may have noticed, thanks to all the discounts we got, we are left with 116.72 euros change, which I donated to Auta Ukraina, a charity run by the Ukrainian Association in Finland, Ukrainalaisten Yhdistys Suomessa ry. This organization is providing humanitarian help to Ukraine. I once took some stuff for them when I drove an empty van from Helsinki to Poland, and I was impressed how well organized they are logistically. I can highly recommend donating to them if you are in Finland. I donated for helping Ukrainian hospitals, including field hospitals. They also helped me to get my car running when it developed some problems just before leaving for Lviv. As promised, none of those money were used on travel purposes or anything related to my car. However, some of you donated also to my personal coffee page to the total sum of 98 euros. I also got €100 donation to that purpose from my mom. As those were separate from the main fundraiser and I generally treat coffee as my tipping jar, I was not keeping receipts and stuff, so I can only offer you a loose breakdowns. Of those 198 euros, 25 euros were spent on a set of new spark plugs for my car, 44 euros on the ferry ticket, 112 euros on petrol to get to Ukraine, and then 27 for accommodation in Przemysl when the train from Lviv arrived too late and I had to stay overnight. In Lviv, Stas and Ira have put me in a nice hotel near their place, and Stas paid for my train ticket and I invited him to a dinner in exchange. I also had some more food on the way, had to buy screen wash and whatever, so there is definitely no change left from this lot. I would like to thank everyone who helped all this to happen. Julius Matto and Vadim Vechirka, who got my car running after it was stationary for 3 months, and also Atro and Zosia, who came with jump leads from the other side of Helsinki to help me start it in the first place. Reddit Finland community and Kasper Kanosto of Your Finnish Friends org, who gave me advice how to do the car-related paperwork properly. Jakub Sobiecki, my longtime online friend from Eastern Poland, who agreed to take delivery of power banks and put me up for the night in his home. If you ever need an English-Polish translator in Świdnik, he is your man. My other friend, who wants to remain anonymous, who sourced power banks cheaply through her company's contacts and took care of some of the costs. Stas Szostak, who spent some time on his precious holiday time to babysit me in Lviv, and his wife Ira, who was not been too angry at him for that, at least I hope so. They also put me up in a nice hotel and even found a couple of hours to show me Lviv. Stefan, one of my followers on Mastodon, who purchased a train ticket for me when my card payments weren't going through and then donated the money to Ukraine. And to that other one who offered to do the same but was just a bit slower. To editorial teams of Bylines and to Jan Czulik of Britskie Listy, who agreed to publish my fundraiser. To everyone else who provided assistance, advice or shared the fundraiser links to help spread the message. And last but not least, to everyone who honored me with their trust and donated money to this cause. Thank you, everyone. And to you, you Russian bowback who tried to vandalize my car in December 2022. I hope you are happy now that the car is defending Ukraine as you wished so. But you know what? I actually don't care if you are happy or not. Let me just quote yourself back at you. Idi na chuj.